latest episode of the Moviescramble podcast, where we are ready to let things get a little bit uncanny and off-kilter. We're going to be discussing the new Oz Perkins film, Keeper, but in order to do so, I need to bring in a man who, whilst definitely from privilege, has never been accused of having stacks of bodies in his basement. Yet. It's John! John, how are you?
That's quite funny because I was making a Joseph Fritzl joke the other day there to my wife about,
oh my God!
about being allowed to sleep or something like that, been told what to do and everything. So yes, yeah. The thing is, I do actually have a bit of a basement in this house. There's
of course you do.
Sort of a cavity space underneath it. It's about 5 foot, but it's not quite big enough to keep anybody over like maybe about 3
stand up
foot.
in there.
Yes, yeah. I don't think you would want to. It's not particularly nice. So yes, I am good. Just obviously we're podding at slightly different times. So looking out the window now, it's actually pitch black because it's after like 3:30 in the afternoon. So yeah. But yes, I'm good. How are you doing with your Nordic jumper and everything on? You're very much set up for winter.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm freezing because it's been like -3 in Glasgow for the past week. However, I still saw someone out in shorts on Friday night, so make that make sense. Well, I mean, the darkness obviously I think is perfect for talking about this particular film. It's obviously got a sort of like psychological horror vibe to it. As I said, we're discussing Keeper, a film that has been divisive for fans and critics alike. The film centres around Liz, played by Tatiana Maslany, and Malcolm, played by Rossif Sutherland. They have been dating for a year, and to mark this milestone, Malcolm invites Liz up to his family's cabin in the woods for the weekend. But almost as soon as they arrive, Liz begins to feel like she's losing her grip on reality. Is it the house? Is it Malcolm? Or is it Liz? This is a film that I feel like even if you've seen all 3 trailers, gave absolutely nothing away as to what this film's about and how it's structured, which I think is a good thing. And I was wondering if you did as well, or is it because it's an Oz Perkins film, do you feel like you already have a sort of rough idea of how this is going to go?
I had no idea how this is going to go because based on his 2 previous directorial films, they are completely different to each other. There's maybe a wee bit of through line in terms of horror, but in terms of the story and the way that's approached, it's completely different. So I didn't know what to expect based on those films, and having seen the trailers, I didn't know what to expect either, apart from the fact it was a horror film. So it like you say, it didn't really give anything away. So my expectations for it were reasonably high based on his previous output, but I didn't have a Scooby about what to expect. It's a lovely feeling actually going into a cinema and not knowing, but it's not for everybody. Some people like to know ahead of time whether they think they'll actually like the film or not like it. But that's kind of the way of it's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel I have declared myself quite the Perkins fangirl, so I feel like expectations were high, but I'd only actually seen the first trailer, so I really had no idea. And like yourself, it feels like such a treat these days to go into a film and not have had it all sort of spelled out for you before you go in. I really like just essentially not knowing. And this is a film that actually, for it being a horror about a sort of, classic cabin in the woods type of situation, it's almost completely devoid of violence and blood. And it gives us like this kind of slow burn, creepy atmosphere instead, which is quite different to the likes of The Monkey, which we talked about is a bit of a splatterfest. How did you feel about that restraint? Because I know that a lot of people have said that it's essentially made it less satisfying for them to watch.
I was very satisfied watching it because I like these type of films where it's all about the build-up and the tension and the atmosphere. You don't necessarily need a jump scare. You don't necessarily need the gore. Sometimes it's interesting to watch it and it's fun to watch it, let's face it. That's partly why people watch horror films, for the gore. But if you are being forced to kind of go into your own mind while you're watching the film to try and understand what's going on, that can be equally as scary, because I don't know about the inside of your mind, but it's not something
it's a dark place.
Like spending a lot of time.
Yes, I tried to avoid it as much as humanly possible. But there are a few jump scares in this, because Chris took great pleasure in watching my soul leave my body a few times during this But I didn't ever feel like they were a sort of like concession to convention. It did feel like they were sort of merited in the moment. Would you agree with that?
Of course. Yeah, and they tended to come out of nothing as well. So there wasn't the standard build-up, which you wouldn't expect from his type of film. You don't get sort of standard tropes. You don't get the swelling music and things like that to actually tell you something's going to happen, or it's a wee false moment or stuff like that. You just don't get that. It's just it works in terms of the story. So when it happens, you're kind of going, Jesus, but then you're thinking, well, I know why that happened there, because it's moving the story on somewhat, and it's maybe introducing a new element, or maybe reinforcing or pushing you down a path about the sort of the mental state of whoever's actually on the screen at the time, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's nice to have these things, and it was necessary in this film, but it wasn't overdone, like you say. So it didn't become tired. That's the worst thing you can have when you're watching a film like this.
I hate films where you can actually see the jump coming to the extent where it has no impact on you, like physically, because you're like, well, I know this is going to lead up to a big loud noise, or a cat's going to snarl and scarp it off, like all that. It definitely there's none of that involved here. But you mentioned obviously like clues towards mental states. One of the big sort of obvious markers for me in this was the kind of unsettling camera angles that he employed throughout the film. It's sort of like panning into the eaves of the cabin, or it looks like someone's watching you from the top of the stairs. Like, how unsettling is this? Like, it feels like you're constantly being surveilled, but at the same time, it makes the house feel very disorientating as well. Like, you wouldn't be able to find your way around it because there was just these constantly odd angles. How, like, did that work for you? Did you find it cliched? You know, how did it impact your enjoyment of the film?
It would have been cliched if they had done it, you know, showed you a certain angle, a certain shot, maybe 2 times, and then the third time there was an impact from it. But the third time was exactly the same.
So you're just that made it even scarier.
Yeah, because it just kept it going, and it was always like they would shoot up towards the sort of the apex of the room. So, and it was like kind of dark, but it was just all wood, and you were kind of thinking, there's nothing there. I can't see anything there. Am I missing something? Am I missing a shadow? Am I missing? And obviously, that's getting you sort of a little more tense about what's going on and things like that. Yes, and it didn't dwell on shots that, like you say, if you caught a glimpse of something, or it was something that was happening behind the character of Liz, like say when she was actually in the bath or whatever, and there was wee things going on that you could miss, or you could be kind of going, did I actually see that? Did that happen? And that's you're getting into the same mindset that Liz is in, because she's gone through the same sort of thing, saying there's something wrong here, and I'm seeing things out of the corner of my eye, but is it because I'm hearing my own, or is it because I'm in an unfamiliar place? And a house of wood creaks, let's face it, and that was a house that was made of wood, so therefore there would be a certain amount of movement and stuff, so there would be noises. So is it a natural noise, or is it something else entirely? So yeah, I thought it was done very nicely. It was very subtle the way they did it, so therefore I never get tired by doing anything like that either. So yeah, fully enjoyed it.
It's also a house where there's loads of mirrors and glass. I felt like I was constantly scanning the screen to see if I could see something either moving out the window, or I'm like, is that reflection exactly as it should be? Is something, and I feel like that's a testament to how the film really blurs reality, because you're never quite sure if Liz's perspective is accurate or not, pretty much from the offset in this film.
Yep. Yeah, she is made out to be someone who is a wee bit of sort of at odds with herself at times. She's not particularly happy in her own skin. She's an artist, but she doesn't value her art in any way.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was sort of like deprecative in a way. She was saying, no, it's just something that, you know, it's decorative, it hangs up. And is that you just been, you know, trying to be a wee bit sort of humble about what you do and all this? But you kind of get the feeling, no, there's something else going on there as well. She's not entirely happy. She's been with this guy for a year, and this is the sort of point in a relationship where things naturally would start to get more serious, but is she ready for that? Because there's so many things sort of going on in her head, and that's kind of all sort of brought to the fore right at the start when she's having a conversation with her friend about what's going on, you know, like going away and everything, and you can tell that she's just completely unsure about basically everything that's going on, and that can be down to the fact that perhaps she's not well, or perhaps it's just something's going through, and you don't really get that context until like far later on in the film, which is good, because if you had things spelled out for you right from the start, it's a different type of film altogether. So it was an interesting way to sort of approach that character and bring that character actually to the screen initially as well, because you didn't know. So.
Yeah, and I also loved, like, there was a lot of really tight close-ups on Liz as well, like sort of like in a kind of overwhelming way. And I particularly like the one where she was lying with her head flat while she was scribbling, because it really reminded me of the close-up of the shower scene in Psycho, which I don't know if that's deliberate. Obviously, he is Anthony Perkins' son, but I just thought that was it felt like very much a nod to the death of a prominent character. So part of me was like, oh my God, is this the death of her sanity? Like, what is going on here? And I wondered if that shot was used quite purposely. So I really enjoyed the overall sort of aesthetics of this. Like, it definitely felt like it was leaning towards more psychological horror than, like, as we've said, like the classic jump scare. But he's also once again been really playful with the type of music that he's used. So the film opens with Mickey and Sylvia's Love is Strange, which most people know from Dirty Dancing. Like, it's, you know, a cute, poppy, like, you know, 1960s song. And then we have Peggy Lee's I Don't Want to Play in Your Yard, which is used in the trailer to great effect as well. I mean, seriously, how clever is the use of music in this film? Because it's so uncanny. Compared to, you know, the visuals that you're seeing and what you're hearing do not match.
Yeah, kudos to the music supervisor in this film for coming up with tracks like that, especially the I Don't Want to Play in Your Yard, and what's the other one? Bring It On Home to Me.
Oh, I love that song. I actually really love that song as well. Ruined.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing. It's the counterbalance that actually makes it in these sort of situations. They did something similar with Weapons as well, with the George Harrison track. Yeah, it was quite a gentle track over quite an interesting visual, and this is the same here. This is kind of reinforcing certain story beats and story elements, like I don't want to play in your yard, as in I want to get the fuck out of here. This is what that's what that was saying to me, you know.
Absolutely. Well, Tatiana Maslany's portrayal of Liz, for me, felt very ambiguous, and I mean that in a very, very positive way. What did you think of her performance? Because I feel like it really challenges the sort of trope of the hysterical woman in horror. Yeah,
she was very detached from almost reality at times, and that was brought across in the way that she actually portrayed Liz, because she, like you say, she was lying down, like scribbling away right beside her, and all just the way she conducted herself, the way, I mean, she would do wee silly things like do a love heart actually on the window and blow on it to create it for no reason whatsoever. It's just it just felt really, really strange, and she would seem so very normal at times, but then when she was reacting against other people, the other people who were actually in it, and it's a very small cast, she came across as being very wary and very still and everything, and very unsure of herself and unsure of other people. It's like she didn't spend an awful lot of time in the company of other people, which you can kind of understand being an artist, because you do spend an awful lot of time in your own head, in your own studio, working at your own vision, so you're not really interacting with people in a lot of ways, especially if you're like a painter or something like that. So it could be part of like a lack of social skills, and that kind of played into the fact that she hadn't really had a lot of long-term relationships. They usually broke up very quickly. Could that have been down to the way that she actually came across to other people? Was she detached from them and eventually was just like, you know, we've got nothing in common here? Whereas in this case, it seemed to be working because of the other character, and they managed to last a year. So
I felt she was quite toddler-like at times, like the scene where Malcolm is telling her, I've been called back. There's a, major coma patient's waking up. And she's sort of lying on this bench or like banquette thing. And she's in a kind of awkward position. Her head's sort of like propped up. And she's like, yeah, well, you go. And she's very sort of like, I don't know, kind of like nonchalant about it. He's just told her this big breaking health news. And she's just like, yeah, if you want. And like the way she was sort of conducting herself, as you say, it's like it's someone who's very much used to being on their own and therefore doesn't have to worry about how they appear to other people, which does kind of lend itself to this notion that she is the one that's going crazy in all of this because everybody else around her seems to be quite normal. She obviously is playing off against Ross Sutherland's Malcolm, who I think sort of oscillates between sort of like weirdly tender and into her and that classic surgeon's arrogance. Like he's quite cold and detached at times as well. How did you feel their relationships are played into the tension of the film, and what did you think of his performance?
Yeah, with the character of Malcolm, he always seemed to be wanting to please Liz, and it was lots of small things. It was like affirmations of her talent. He bought one of her pictures, even though they'd been in a relationship. It would have been quite natural for him just to give him, but no, it was a transaction. It was showing that this is worth to me, so I'm going to buy it because I want to buy it from you because I believe in what you do. It's something. And it was like when they came in, the first thing when they came into the cabin was he says, right, I'm going to put the picture up. It wasn't get settled, have a cup of tea, get all the bags sorted. It was put the picture up. So he's trying to reinforce the fact that he's very much there for her and very much into her, but at the same time, like you say, there's a certain detached air about him and a certain stiffness and awkwardness that he has because, well, you don't know why. It becomes apparent why he's like that, but you think that it could possibly be he's reacting to the way that he's treated by her at times because she can be quite offhand and everything, and he's obviously just keep on trying not to have an argument, trying not to force into a situation where there's any sort of confrontation. He seems like a character that wants to stay away from that at all costs. He wants as easy a life as possible because he must have quite a difficult life dealing with patients and patients' families, because he says that's one of the worst things you can do. You have to give somebody the news that, person that you think is going to wake up is never going to wake up again. So yes, so the elements of that. I thought his performance was great, and it reminded me a wee bit of the character that Oz Perkins actually played in The Monkey as well, the uncle character.
Yeah.
Just not so much in the comedic way, but the sort of the awkwardness way and not really saying the correct thing and all that. So I can see that being a character that has been developed directly from Oz Perkins. He's put elements of himself in there. I don't know the guy, obviously, but that's what I just think based on some of his own performances that I've seen. But I could be completely wrong, of course.
No, I really get that. It's interesting because a lot of the stuff that I've read, and actually, as I say, the final girls group went to see it, they said that they thought the character of Malcolm was really flat. But I actually think that's quite purposeful because you have supporting characters like Darren and Minka who are way over the top and slightly, mental from the first sort of time that you see them. And they're kind of the comic relief in this. So what did you think of how they were sort of brought into the film? Because as you say, very, very small cast.
Yes, but they are not in the film very much, which kind of is...
Small doses, yeah.
Well, exactly, yeah. You don't want to have extended scenes of Darren and Minka because then they would start to become caricatures, although Minka does feature in it later on. She obviously does come back into it just on her own. With Liz, they have some sort of encounter, but it was very small parts in it, so they didn't need to be in it any more than they were in it. The character of Darren could probably have been expanded a bit more, I think, because he was quite an interesting counterbalance to Malcolm, and they're obviously related, they're cousins. So what's the background to them? Which, again, we do see elements of that later on in the film about how they actually grew up and everything. So yes, that is all there as well. But or were they brothers or were they cousins? I thought they were cousins, but I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. Well, it's fine. Yeah. So yes, I I like these, and yes, they were a bit of a relief at times, but they kind of served the story more than anything else. They expanded it just enough to keep you interested about what's the relationships that are going on here. Is Minka just the latest in a long line of girls that he's brought back? Because obviously Malcolm says that Darren just he has different girls all the time. It's not he doesn't seem to have any sort of serious relationship. It's very much a playboy in this sort of instance. So yes, and it just shows the contrast between these two cousins who have obviously known each other for a long time, but they're very, very different people, considering they're in each other's lives all the time, and they basically live next door to each other. Just how different they've actually became.
Yeah, I thought it was quite telling where Darren sits Minka down and he's like, oh, she's from one of the Aenias. Like, he doesn't even bother to learn like where she's from, because for him, she's so utterly disposable. Whereas you've got Malcolm, who's trying to sort of, what you think is trying to make a sort of lasting thing with Liz, who on the contrary seems quite aloof. When I was watching this, I was really reminded of The Yellow Wallpaper, the short story. And I feel like it's that kind of descent into madness that this film sort of hints at. And I wondered if you had thought about that, because that book in particular is about sort of like isolation and gendered power dynamics. And I wondered if you felt that when you were watching this film as well, that it's very important that it's Liz that's seen as mad and not Malcolm. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's quite a traditional thing, isn't it? It goes back to the way that men have treated women for centuries of something. I mean, the word hysteria, it all comes from yes, exactly. So, and it's all women's conditions. If women are mad, it's because there's something wrong with them. Whereas a man, if there's something wrong with him, there's a whole other reason for it. There's a whole other manly, rugged reason for it. But it's the different ways that they treat the same sort of situations. And we spend an awful lot of time with Liz on her own, and we're only getting her perspective of things. So as she's experiencing things and it's making her start to sort of doubt herself, doubt her own sanity, there's no counterpoint to that, because you're right there with her. You're not seeing another perspective until Malcolm is there, and he basically comes in and goes, there, dear, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's a bit of a strange place, but don't you worry your pretty little head. You'll be okay. And all that. And it's not exactly those exact words, but it's that kind of tone about it. Yeah. It's very sort of overbearing, and I'm a doctor, I know what I'm talking about. But he didn't actually offer any medical advice. It was just a case of, you have a wine. Just a bit fraught. Yes. Have a drink and a wee sit down, that kind of thing, So yes, it was right there all through the film.
I definitely thought, I feel like it sort of makes you think about things like trust and perception, that whole sort of toxic relationship vibe as well. We can get slightly spoilery here. So I feel like if you've not seen Keeper, now's a good time to pause the podcast, go and watch it, and come back and join us for the rest of it. But there is sort of what, for me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this film, but for me, where I think it sort of fell down slightly is the sort of third act reveal. Malcolm sits Liz down and kind of explains the whole setup with the house. For me, it slightly sort of undermined all the ambiguity that I felt the film had built up until this point. And it was very much like, again, man explaining to women, this is what's going on. Did you feel that worked, or did it kind of undo all the scaries for you as well?
It did to a certain extent. It could have been a lot shorter than it was and still maintained a certain level of ambiguity. You could have explained it maybe in 2 or 3 sentences and just moved on from there. You didn't need to know the whole story. You kind of understood some of the background, and some of it was implied as well. So there wasn't the need to actually explain all this in the detail that we got it. I can understand why they did it, because there's a certain amount of closure involved with it. Yeah, it's all wrapped up nicely into one story, and it does make sense about how it actually all ends then, and you kind of get a sense, right, I understand why X, Y, and Z has happened at the end of this film because of what was explained. But it would have still been as good if you'd only had half of it explained to you, and sort of, you know, a wee bit more mysterious in a way. So you're still having to think yourself, you're having to imagine yourself what's actually going on around you. And the less you know, the more talking points you have about a film afterwards. There's more discussion, there's more points of view. But if it's all sort of set out for you, there's not that room anymore. So would you go back and see it again looking for other clues? Maybe not, because it's all been laid out for you.
Yeah, it sort of removes that notion of interpretation. And the thing is, I think the film had done a really good job of dropping hints. Like, you kind of knew where this was going up until, as I say, he sits Liz down and explains it all to her. So I do felt like the film had worked really hard to create this atmosphere of, oh, are we going to tell you? No, maybe not. And like was leaving you, as you say, to do all the thinking, because obviously the inside of your own head is much scarier. And I felt like it really undid all of that, but then it moves on to this sort of like grotesque, bloody, oozy imagery that kind of reminded me of sort of like medieval, like religious paintings. Like look, the tonal shift is a bit mad, but that also felt very like Oz Perkins, because it all went a bit batshit and the imagery was a bit spooky. But did that sort of sequence of Liz in the basement and obviously all of these previous victims, you assume, coming to life, did that work for you, or did you find that quite jarring?
It did work for me, because I was looking at the film in terms of it being a sort of a folk horror type of film, and this is the kind of thing that really happens in these films. You have maybe 2/3 of the film where it kind of builds up, and it's all very creepy and it's all very nuanced, and then basically somebody throws a big bucket of guts into the middle of the screen, and it just goes completely mental. That's the kind of thing that happens. I mean, it's very sort of Robert Eggers in that way, sort of the early work that he was doing. You know, it's that similar sort of idea, and we've seen like countless sort of British examples of sort of folk horror and the way that goes completely crazily towards the end. So I didn't feel it was out of place because of the context. It very much put itself up as that type of film, with the way that some of the horror elements were introduced, like the woman with the bag in her head and some of the other bits and pieces. It was all kind of like, okay, what's going on here? This is very sort of things are happening in the woods kind of idea. So I enjoyed it, and I understood why it did go that way, but I can see why some people would be going, what the fuck has just happened here? What is this? You know?
I had never thought of it as a folk horror, but now that you've said that, that makes complete sense. Like, it really, as you say, it's the literal bucket of guts. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved that imagery at the end, because it kind of felt like, now we're getting, because I feel like Oz Perkins is a sort of self-professed weird kid, and it was like, yeah, now we're getting the weird kid stuff. I like this. And I really loved that imagery, but I know that for a lot of reviews that I've read and just people that I've spoken to, they've kind of gone, well, where the fuck did that come from? But actually, you're very, very correct. The suggestion that this could be a folk horror sort of reframes the entire film, and it does make that, it allows for that kind of batshit ending section. And of course, we get a new horror final girl. What did you think of the ending?
I enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting the ending to happen in the way that it did. And obviously I'm not giving anything away because of kind of major spoilers, but I was very impressed by the way that things changed around, and we got the ending that we did get, and you were kind of then going, yay!
Yeah.
Which is not a usual experience actually going into a horror film. After a horror film, usually come out going, yeah, it was a bit deep and it was a bit gory, but not come out going, yeah, feel quite uplifted by that. Thank you.
It was very much the same type of vibe at the end of Hereditary, where Florence Pugh just has that slight smirk, and you're like, yes, well done, you've beat all the rest of them out. And that was very much, I felt the same. I felt very elated for how this film had turned out. I really enjoyed the ending, and it does sort of weirdly leave you smiling, which is a very unusual thing to say about a film that is quite deep and quite philosophical and talking about, as we said, like gendered power dynamics and all that sort of thing. Is there anything else you would like to add about Keeper?
Just the sort of the overall soundscape of the film, because obviously it was set in a luxurious cabin, which is in the middle of nowhere, so you're getting a lot of sounds of nature. There's a lot of water in it. I dread to think what it would be like if you went into this film if you'd just had a couple of pints and or a large slushy. You'd be needing the toilet after about 20 minutes with all the water images, and obviously she's in the bath, and there's also the stream and everything that's just outside, and that plays a major part in like bringing the story to a conclusion when she finds the wee pendant and all these good things as well. And a lot of it's got to do, and water is one of these sort of primal, it's one of the primary forces, isn't it? You know, there's earth, air, fire, and water, so it's all got to do with the, you know, the whole world. And this date back, you know, millennia, or is it something that they're just using that to you know, sort of invoke things? And that's all through the sound and everything as well, because you're always got this sort of humming in the background, or there's water in the background, or there's something going on, and you're kind of, and it's just unsettling because you don't know why it's there a lot of the time. It's not added to in any way, so that you're getting like crash, crash, bang, and all this sort of stuff. It's just really there, always in the background, or there's no sound at all, and it's very silent because
which is even
she's on
worse,
her own.
I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, but that was the only thing I could think of.
It's also a film that's going to put you off chocolate cake for life.
Oh my God, the sound of that. Oh.
Yeah. So if you're a big chocolate cake fan, maybe this isn't the film for you, because it's one of those grubby, devouring, using your fingers, and then it's like a cherry liqueur or something in the middle of it, and that all comes oozing out, and it's just, some of the imagery is quite gross, even when it's something that's, she's, you know, eating cake. Like, it's not a massive big deal, but it takes on this other layer and meaning because it's Oz Perkins that's having her eat the cake. It's not, you know, something light and happy and fluffy.
I've got a thing about the way people actually see when they like gorge themselves on things like cake, and they actually put their fingers into it, and they're pulling out, it's like they're pulling out clumps of it, and you're like, oh, it's just flu.
Yeah. But chocolate cake aside, would you recommend this film?
Heartily, yes. I think this was a great film. I really enjoyed it. I can understand why people wouldn't kind of get it, because it's slow and it's quite methodical. You do need to pay attention to it. It's not something you can sit on your phone and watch at the same time, because you won't get as much out of it as you think. But that's the same with pretty much all of the good horror films that we've talked about over the last 2 years. They demand your attention. You have to watch them. You can't just drift in and out of them, because you'll get nothing from it. In that case, you'll get less than you really should by doing that. So yes, I would heartily recommend it, but put your phone away to the side if you're going to watch it at home.
Yeah. I think if your introduction to Oz Perkins has been the monkey, this is going to seem like, what the hell? Whereas I think if you've watched the likes of Gretel and Hansel and the Black Coat's Daughter, it's very much that vibe, that strain of his filmmaking, as opposed to, as I say, the monkey, which is kind of balls to the wall chaos. I mean, I've had fun with all of his films, and I would definitely recommend this as well. I love that sort of trippy psychological horror where the main character that you follow is a bit of an unreliable narrator, and you're never quite sure if you're seeing what they're seeing and if what they're seeing is reality. So this is very much my bag. So I would absolutely recommend it. I believe it's still in cinemas at the time of podcasting. I suspect this is one that will make its way to streaming platforms fairly quickly once it's out the cinema, because I think it has done quite well, despite fierce competition from other sort of big late year blockbusters.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So because we talked about Keeper, we thought we would discuss some of our favourite final girls in horror cinema. So John, do you want to kick us off with one of your picks?
Sure. My first pick is Dana Polk from the 2012 film The Cabin in the Woods.
Makes sense for Keeper. That's the perfect choice.
Yeah, I thought that fitted in quite nicely. The story behind this was one of the early reviews that I did for the website. and
wow.
I was really, really struggling with it because there are spoilers almost all the way through this film.
Yeah.
Almost after about 5 minutes, there's something that happens and you go, right, how am I supposed to write about this? I managed to do like about 500 words or so, kind of skirting around.
That is good going, yeah.
It was all right. I was actually pretty pleased with myself by doing that. But on the face of it, this is just another one of these horror films. 5 people go to a remote cabin in the woods. They find some mysterious artifacts in the basement below.
Never touch the mysterious artifacts in the basement. It should be horror rule 101.
Yeah. Which it is, one of the characters keeps saying, just put everything down and let's go upstairs. Because there's all these different things, like there's a conch and there's a musical box and a mysterious diary and things like that. So, and what happens is the one that gets chosen, the one that they go through, which in this case is the diary, invokes these evil spirits, these monsters, to come out, and they kill them one by one. Now, this film plays on sort of tropes of these horror films, you know, the cabin in the woods getting picked off one by one, the types of characters that you have. You have the jock, you have the nerd, you have, well, what's regarded as the whore, but it's not really. There is the virgin and there is the fool. And in these type of films, they get killed off one by one in a certain order, and it's very important in this film as well because, well, I'm going to give away the premise of this.
Yeah, it's an old film.
Yeah,
good.
Basically, it's all engineered so these people actually go to the cabin in the woods and get killed in a certain order because the Earth has been run for a millennia by these basically evil monsters, and people found out a way to placate them by providing sacrifices, and it has to be these people that actually get sacrificed in the particular order. And they actually say at one point Dana Polk is she's the final girl, and it doesn't matter if she dies, but if she dies, she has to be the last one that dies.
Yeah.
And they actually call her the final girl in this film, which is quite unusual. You don't normally get that unless something is sort of like a bit meta and it's sort of referencing these type of things. So this film twists this around because the way that it works is whatever object they choose, monster appears, but there's a whole range of monsters and there's a whole sort of control system all around the world that they have to have these sacrifices going on a regular basis, or the monsters will come out of their slumber and rise up and devastate the world or whatever. And there's all these control centers. There's one actually in the US that's controlling the cabin in the woods, but there's one in Japan that controls this school classroom, and there was one in Madrid, and there was another one in Stockholm as well. So it's all the fact that this has been going on for centuries in order for them to keep doing this, and it's just a cracking film, and it obviously kind of plays with these tropes, and you get like all the people actually in the control center, they have a bet on which monster's actually going to come out. There's a pool going and all that. And the main guy is always wanting the merman. Oh, I've not seen, I'll never see a merman actually doing this. And it's just really good. And the film's like 90 minutes long. It doesn't outlast its welcome. It's got a really good cast. Chris Hemsworth is in it just sort of pre-Thor, just before he really sort of hit it big. So it's a cracking cast. And you've got the people poking around. It's a cracking cast there as well. So it works really, really well. And it's funny as well. There's lots of funny elements in it as well, especially with the stoner character, because he keeps saying things that are happening. He's talking about being monitored and watched all the times, and nobody believes him because he's just smoking pot all the time. They're all going, like, you're really high, man. You just need to stop that. So yeah, it was excellent wee movie. Really enjoyed it, and very good final girl as well. Yeah,
and as I say, a perfect tie-in to Keeper, just in terms of location. Yeah, that's it. I remember the first time I watched that, and it completely blew my mind because it was they're very, very playful with, as I say, these kind of classic horror tropes. My first pick, I am going to go with Iris from Companion, which is a film from this year. Again, if you've not seen that, pause the podcast because I'm going to have to get a bit spoilery here to talk about it. Companion basically begins as this kind of like romantic getaway sort of weekend before revealing its horror twist, the fact that Iris, played by Sophie Thatcher, isn't human, but a companion robot designed for essentially emotional and sexual servitude. Her idyllic relationship with her partner Josh unravels during a cabin weekend with friends. There's a murder plot, and basically it's seen how Josh is very manipulative and controlling because essentially he can adjust her settings. But Iris discovers her true nature. She realizes what she is, and therefore she has a fight in her hands for her own autonomy. And there's quite a sort of brutal showdown between her and Josh. The final scene of this film sort of hints at a larger world of companion bots. Therefore, you're never quite sure if, you know, her freedom is certain in the future. I think that what's amazing about this particular character is she obviously starts as this sort of like programmed partner. She has no agency, but it's almost like someone who's survived an abusive relationship, the way she sort of reclaims who she is. Her transformation from this sort of like programmed AI into somebody who can actually survive and as a fighter subverts the trope of the sort of submissive woman, or the hysterical woman indeed, that we see in horror films as well. She kills only in self-defense. She's very resilient, and it brings in this notion of technological oppression, which I think we'll see more of in horror, obviously as AI and tech advances. But I think that Iris is a phenomenal final girl, because that film had me hooked from the offset, because I didn't know where it was going. The reveal comes pretty early on, and then it's just like a battle to the end, and I absolutely loved it. I think it's on Amazon Prime, so if you haven't seen it already, absolutely go and watch this. This is one of like these really fresh approaches to horror. As I say, it brings in the sort of tech and AI element that we'll probably see more of. But as far as I'm concerned, Iris is an ideal final girl.
Yeah, the film really leans into what your expectations are with the initial meet cute in the supermarket and things like that. And you go, why is it happening this way? This is obvious. This is too obvious.
It's so perfect. It does actually,
yeah. And the way that it basically twists around very, very quickly, and you understand the dynamic it's actually going on, and you're just like, this is a good story. It really plays in well. And like you say, when she actually gains her own agency and the way that she then tackles the problems that are in front of her, I think, it was a great film. It's really good, and it's right up with all the sort of best sort of horror films over the last couple of years. Definitely. Really, really clever. Yep. And it's Jack Quaid, isn't it? He's the boyfriend. Yeah, he's horrible.
He's good at being a bit of a bastard.
Oh, yeah, aye.
Yeah. That was a summary recommendation that wasn't a sequel, so take note, people.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's true. Your second pick?
My second pick is one of the classics, one of the early ones. It is Laurie Strode from the original Halloween film from 1978. This is one of the ones that kind of defined the term final girl. I mean, there's a few of them about, obviously, but it's one that people actually go to as a reference. Obviously, for anybody that's unaware of who Laurie is and what the film is about, who the fuck are you and where the fuck have you been for the last 20 years since we've had a trilogy of films just recently?
It's quite a big deal, yeah. That's one of my pop culture references that can actually be understood by the young team.
Yeah. Is that your Steve Rogers moment when you can go, I know that reference, I know that. I get that one, I get the flying monkeys.
Yeah.
So anyway, Halloween is a 1978 American horror film, John Carpenter, and it's all about unstoppable evil force rampaging through a town, basically looking for Laurie above anything else, and it's how the character of Michael Myers is chasing her down and how she manages to get out of the way at the expense of pretty much everybody else around her. There's lots of really gory, horrific kills in it. There's an awful lot of tension in the film as well, which you don't actually think about so much because it is a film basically from the 70s, so there is more than just gore and murderous mayhem in it. There is actually a pretty good story in it as well, and you get just a wee snippet of Michael Myers' background, so you don't know exactly what's going on. You just think something's broken, and that's enough for you. Obviously, the part itself was Jamie Lee Curtis in a very early role for her. She was playing a teenager in it, and I don't think she was much older than the teenager when she actually did it. Her performance in it is just fantastic. It's a mixture of absolute hysteria at times. She doesn't know what the fuck is going on, pretty much. And also this sort of inner steely resolution that she finds in order to deal with situations. And you find that you find that in real life as well as you find it in films, and it's done to the extreme in films. But when you don't know how a person is going to react to a situation until they're actually in it, and it's the fight or flight thing, you know, do they try and run away, or do they try and do something about it? And Laurie very much is try and do something about it, because running away isn't an option, because this is this unstoppable machine animal that is just going to keep going. You know, you can't get away. So I thought that was a very good sort of final girl. Slightly undermined, obviously, by some of the later films and the series and everything, but that's the way it goes. That's why I chose the very first film rather than one of the later installments.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example. And I think that it's one of these films where, like, yes, she has this resilience, but she also still feels like a very credible teenage character.
Yeah.
She does make some silly decisions. She is frightened, like, but it doesn't have all the answers, and she's not like this lean, mean fighting machine either. Like, it all feels like very, very credible. But I know that you and Simi have both told me that subsequent films sort of like undo the lore a little bit.
They do a wee bit,
contradict each other and all that sort of thing. So yeah, probably best sticking with the first one.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But for completeness, watch the other 12
25
or so. Yeah.
Simi's sitting there like, yeah, done it. And for my next pick, I have gone with the character of Grace from the 2019 film Ready or Not, another film that I absolutely loved. So Grace is played by Samara Weaving, and she marries into this wealthy family, only to discover that her wedding night isn't going to be the sexy time that she maybe thinks it is. She's actually going to get involved in a deadly game of hide and seek, where she must be hunted and sacrificed in order to appease a demonic pact that they have made. So you basically have one sort of like blood splattered night where she has to fight back, she has to kill family members, and she has to survive the ritual as well, which obviously, as I say, is this demon that's going to appear. So I really like Samara Weaving's performance in this. I think she's funny, slightly feral, and as we've said, very, very resilient as well. And unlike a sort of passive survivor, this is going to sound stupid, but she's very active in her determination to make it to the end of the night. And of course, you can talk about sort of actively dismantling patriarchal, elitist systems as well. So her bloodied wedding dress and that picture of her on the steps with a cigarette in her mouth is like instant horror icon, sort of this, you know, rebellion against tradition and class privilege. The whole film is very much sort of tonally in keeping with The Cabin in the Woods, I would say. There's lots of horror elements, but it's very good fun as well. It's quite a sort of satirical twist on this notion of like marriage and wealth and survival. So yeah, I thought she was a perfect final girl, literally just for that image of her having the cigarette on the steps. That is just chef's kiss.
Yes, with everything in fire behind her as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, yeah, there are some. That's
how I feel by this time on a Monday.
There are some really inventive sequences with kills in this.
Yes,
because
very good kills in
this. It's based in obviously a big sort of mansion house, so there's all the different types of rooms and the things that can happen in them. And it's very, very good. It's very clever. And like you say, there's an awful lot of humour in it as well. But yes, there was talk of a sequel to that.
I believe it's being filmed.
Happened.
Is it not?
Oh, right. Oh, brilliant. Oh, good stuff.
I mean, I would definitely watch that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know, because I don't know where the story would go from here, but I had such fun with the first one that I would absolutely go and see a second.
Is it called Here I Come, though?
It should be.
It should be, shouldn't it?
Right to Hollywood straight away. Tell them. It's like the Five Nights at Freddy's sequel is called Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It should be called Five More Nights at Freddy's. That's annoying me at the moment. But yeah, you should email Hollywood and say, this sequel should be called Here I Come. And if it's not, we boycott.
Yep. Because the Now You See Me films, they waited until the third one before they called it Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
I know, how annoying is that?
Yeah, because if that was me,
film.
Yeah, I would have called that the second film, and the third one you would call it Now You Three Me. You know?
John, you are a genius. Honestly, your
I have
brain
got
is
that.
so
That's the
alert
bumper
for
for
this
the
time of
start.
night. By all means, use it. Like, that is just, that's so clever. But I do... there's so many films you're just like, why would you do that as a sequel when this was, something else was right there for the taking? Like, it just is mad, isn't it? So infuriating. But yes, Hollywood, if you're listening, the sequel to Ready or Not, as John said, should definitely be called Here I Come. So on that note, John, your third pick.
My third and final pick is Lieutenant Ellen Louise Ripley from the 1979 Alien film, which obviously had a number of sequels that she was in as well. But this is the original film. And interestingly, the character of Ripley originally was supposed to be a man.
Yep.
Until Ridley Scott decided, no, let's kind of switch this about and have a female in this role. It will make it far more interesting and something that you wouldn't expect. That coupled with the fact that Sigourney Weaver was an up-and-coming actor at the time and wasn't top billed in the film.
No.
So the surprise was that she did actually last until the end of the film. She was again, quite an early final girl that is obviously referred to quite a lot when you're talking about the sort of origins of this. She does get mentioned the dispatches with this type of thing. So if you haven't seen Alien, it's a crew on a freight ship in deep space. They're bringing a cargo back to, well, I'm assuming it's Earth, and they get brought out of their slumbers because the ship has heard a distress signal, and the ship is programmed to get these distress signals investigated. So therefore, what happens is they all get woken up. They have to go down to the planet and find what's going on, and basically shit happens from there. If you haven't seen this film, then I'm not going to spoil exactly what happens, but basically bad things happen, and it ends up with Ripley and Jonesy the cat trying to get off of the ship before bad things happen to them, which is happening to other people as well while they get there. Now, I've been quite going around the houses on that one without really going into any sort of detail. But the interesting fact about the character of Ripley was it kind of shaped the way, or started to shape the way that gender roles were approached. Because with these type of roles, it wasn't necessarily a male or a female. Traditionally, it would have been a male. You would have had a couple of female members of the crew, but they wouldn't have been very prominent. Ripley's basically second in command on the ship. She obviously fills in whenever the captain is not around. So it's an important role within the ship. So it's not just there not as the science officer or a doctor or whatever. It's actually quite reasonably important, and that did start to make people think, well, if we can have that sort of gender role within a horror film and it's different, and the person lasting towards the end is a female, then why can't we do that in other types of films as well? Now, it obviously hasn't. We've still got a hell of a lot of films that come out in exactly the same sort of way, and you get the tart with a heart kind of role and all this, but it is being changed. We are seeing a bit more diversity, not as much as we should, given the fact that this was made in 1979.
I know.
We should be a bit further along, but it was a good sort of signpost for something that could and should happen. And obviously, it made a star out of Sigourney Weaver at the same time, which is no bad thing.
Yeah, her performance in it is absolutely excellent. I did see one of those things, and it was like, guess the film from the odd description. And it was like, professional woman and her cat are ignored by all the men around her. Bad things happen. And I really like that. But yeah, a great performance. And as you say, like, you go into one of these films, especially when it's like a bit like Psycho, actually, the big name, you don't expect the big name to get killed off. Like, you definitely expect they're going to make it to the final credits. So yeah, and I think a really good example of how parts should be written as well. Like, maybe don't write it with a woman in mind, or don't write it with just write a character and then cast as openly as humanly possible. So yeah, I think that's a great pick.
Nice. Your last one?
So my last one is a film that I watched recently. So I thought I would just go for this. So I'm going to go with the character of Sarah from the 2005 film The Descent. I've never been so grateful that all of my hobbies are sedentary, because I'm never going to die in a cave as a result of it. Basically, this is a film about a sort of group of women who they're kind of adrenaline junkies, and they're going on a caving expedition, and they obviously become trapped. And they soon realize that they are being hunted by these cave creatures. And it's very claustrophobic. There's lots of sort of classic horror terror elements, and there's lots of interpersonal tension as well. And Sarah, played by Shauna McDonald, emerges as the sole survivor. The ending varies depending on where you live in the world. The UK and the US version are very different. The UK ending is slightly more ambiguous than the US one. But I think that this is a good example of, a good sort of psychological arc with a character. She begins as a grieving widow and evolves into a fighter who is willing to not just kill the creatures in the cave, shall we say. Her survival is less about sort of being this innocent sort of hero and more about this kind of like ethically dubious character that she perhaps becomes. You could argue she's just as bad as the things dwelling in the cave. It sort of challenges the purity that's associated with these female heroines. So that's why I quite liked her, because I thought she was quite different. She definitely adds this sort of survival horror intensity to the genre, and as I say, a very, very ambiguous morality. So I thought that would be quite a good one to finish on. It's a great film, good jump scares, loads of tension, and yeah, this is why I don't do small spaces. Makes me feel physically sick watching it.
Yeah, it's not a film for people who don't enjoy dark and closed spaces very much. I've not seen this film for years, actually. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and obviously left an impression. But yeah, it's not the kind of film I kind of want to go back to too often.
No, it's definitely not light-hearted viewing. We watched it as part of our sort of rundown for Halloween there. And I just thought that was a great example, because I like the fact that, as I say, she's not this perfect heroine as well. Like some of the stuff that she does in this film, you're just like, oh, fuck, that's not good. That is not good. So I thought that was a nice one to end on.
Yeah, brilliant. Really good.
So if you want to get in touch with us and tell us about your favourite Final Girl or your thoughts on Oz Perkins' Keeper, you can do so through all the usual social channels, including Instagram and Blue Sky, or you can email us, podcasts@moviescramble.co.uk. We have quite a few new reviews on our website as well at the moment, which is moviescramble.co.uk. So please feel free to get in touch and tell us your thoughts. And obviously, if you want to leave us a review, we will happily take 5 stars from you on your podcast platform of choice. But until next time, it is goodbye from me. Bye.
Bye.